Lagoons in Jurassic World Evolution 3 are notoriously difficult to customize, but today we're going to build one inspired by SeaWorld that should look unlike any lagoon you've seen before. I've been wanting another lagoon in the park for a while now, but I was waiting until I had a unique enough idea, and I think we've got that now. So whilst our scientists head off to get us some aquatic DNA, we're going to take a look at where we're going to be building. We'll be in the Jurassic area, building a new Jurassic Seas exhibit in between the Valley of the Guanlong and the Dimorphodome. Let's get building. I should probably start by saying that although I'm a big fan of the over-the-top 80s and 90s aesthetics of SeaWorld, and we're going to be leaning heavily on those today, I am not a fan of the places themselves. Keeping dolphins and orcas in what are effectively swimming pools is not cool, but I'm going to assume the inhabitants that we're putting in here probably had a very, very small brain indeed, and enrichment is not going to be an issue for them. We'll speak about what we're having in here in a minute, but firstly, let's talk about how we're going to get it to work. Our guests are going to have a big row of stadium seating, an underwater viewing window and an underwater dome to see our animals with. So we're going to be using one of the best blueprints on the workshop, the modular lagoon viewing gallery corner by Brandy, and no idea how we pronounce that. What we're going to do is just take the seats out of that blueprint and use that to join up two actual viewing galleries. That'll give us one seamless set of raised seating for the guests, and then what we're going to do is lower one of the viewing galleries so that we get the underwater view, and put another set of seats on top of that. So we'll end up with what looks like an unbroken chain of overwater viewing, but one of them will actually function as an underwater viewing as well, and we'll put an underwater viewing dome in a bit later as well. For realism, the lagoon will be split into the show area and a holding pool, and we're going to do a lot of decorating on the show area to make it look very different to a normal lagoon. But before we do any more work on the lagoon, we're going to build the big entrance building that people will go through in order to get to it. So I want something with the classic huge concrete features that you would expect in a SeaWorld, but that also has a bit of a continuity with our entrance, so it fits nicely into the park and it doesn't just look like SeaWorld have moved in and taken over part of the park. So we're going to have a big long glass frontage like we do in the entrance, and then we're going to use some of the lagoon accessories and some of our own designs to bring it all together. So I really like these big curved pieces from the lagoons, and they really bring to mind the animal that we're going to have in here. So let's talk about that. I originally designed this for Plesiosaurus, one of the most classic dinosaurs that isn't a dinosaur of all time. But recently here in England, and I'm sure in the rest of the world as well, we celebrated the 100th birthday of one of the greatest human beings of all time, in my opinion, Sir David Attenborough. So as a tribute to him, I've decided that we're going to have Attenborosaurus in here instead. Helpfully, they're also quite a bit larger than Plesiosaurus, so they're going to give us a more impressive spectacle in here as well. What we're doing here is creating a frontage for the building to make it look much nicer. I want to create a shape vaguely reminiscent of the entrance, which is going to be influenced by the sinuous curves of the Attenborosaurus. We're not going to kind of cut out a picture of them like we did in the entrance. We're just going to imply that by changing the heights of these posts here all the way along until we get something that looks like the back and the graceful neck of the Attenborosaurus. So just doing this by eye, which is why we've got the statue in front of the building. We're just going to vaguely copy this nice shape here until we get something that brings that to mind and looks really nice on the front of the building. And once we've done that all the way along here and we finish off this side, we will simply copy it across to the other side. There we go, that's the left-hand side looking good. Now we'll just take it, spin it around, and then move it over to the other side so we've got a mirror image of it. And then once we've got that in the right place, we'll copy it into the middle, and we'll use two copies of it in the middle here and just play around with the ones in the middle. This middle bit isn't going to be part of the Attenborosaurus design. We're just going to create something that looks a bit like a kind of waveform when we're done with it, just something that looks nice in the middle. We'll select two at a time so that each adjustment that we make will be symmetrical on both sides of the design, and we'll get the kind of waveform in here. Don't worry that they're floating in midair, we'll sort that out in a minute. For the moment, we'll just keep adjusting these individual pieces two at a time until we get a shape that we like. And there we go, that's the posts done, really like that. While I was adding those in, I decided that these lagoon pieces would look better facing the other way. You can kind of see the implied neck of the Attenborosaurus a bit better there. So we'll put those around there. I wish these were flexicolour, but we'll work with them in grey. And then we'll just use a couple of the communications pieces to attach the posts to the roof. There we go. That's the basic shape of the front of Jurassic Seas done. Looking really good. Let's get some detail in. We'll get some of these glass doors on and scale them so they fit nicely in between the panes of glass so it looks natural. I think I started with 3 here, but we end up with 2 in the end. I thought that looked better. And then we're going to use this girder piece to make the door frames a bit more solid, make them look a bit more impressive, like the main entrance to a building as large as this. I'm also going to recolor them. I think I'll go with black in the end. And as usual, paste loads of the decals around them with various information signs just for realism. And then we'll move on to the sign. I want a really cool entrance sign for this exhibit that really brings to mind the sort of early 90s flavour that we're going for here. For the moment, I'm just going to get the typography to where I want it to be and get this up on the wall where it belongs. And later on, we're going to come back and do a little trick that we've not done in Jurassic before that's going to make it look really good. But for now, let's move on and get some decorations in front of the building. So I want a big plaza here to kind of announce the building, make sure people know there's something cool here. So we'll get some fountains in and get these to the colour scheme that we're going to be using throughout this build of a sort of sky blue and white. We'll get some Attenborosaurus statues in the fountains, and we're going to position some blue lights underneath them. These are the only lights at the moment that work in daytime, but if you've seen the video for the new update that's coming to Jurassic in a few days' time, finally all the lights will be able to work in the daytime if you set them to do so. Why that wasn't in the game from the start, I don't know, but I'm really happy that's been added in. We're going to be making extensive use of that feature throughout the rest of this part. And with the fountains in and looking good, we'll move on to a custom path. We're going to use art shapes to create a kind of nautical looking path that's going to take people from the main path behind the Dimorphodome across the plaza and into the Jurassic Seas. So we've got these kind of semicircular tube things. If we sink those down to the ground, they give us a nice wavy shape. And then we're just going to take some of the basic rectangles and use those to create a plain white path in between the wave shapes. So we'll use various different sizes of this with the scaling tool, various different angles, and just make it so that all of the area in between the blue is covered in white and none of it is going outside of it, like so. And then we can just use this one piece to create a really nice curving path that's going to take people down to here. Looks a bit weird at the moment with the kind of beige normal path next to it, but all of that is going to be replaced with a plaza made using, I think it's the luxury path it's called. The one with the little Jurassic logos in it, which is a flexi-color. So once we've got this so it joins onto these other paths, then we'll get that luxury path in there. That's starting to look nice now. We'll change those so it's blue as well, so it all fits in. And then we'll just get some curving paths to create a nice plaza here, which we can put a wall around and kind of separate this off from the other exhibits around it. Once we've done that and we've got that looking good, then we'll just put a very simple roof onto the main building. As usual, we'll use some corrugated pieces and a few skylights. You can only see this roof from the air, so no need for anything fancy here. And then we'll use these brick pieces, which got two flexi-color channels, so we can get a nice white and blue combo on it, and position these around the plaza that we've created, make it look whole. And then we'll use this nice lady here as a scale, so we can make sure the wall is at the right height. And then we can get on to finishing off the sign. So what we're going to do is copy it in front of itself and change it to the blue color that we've been using. And then if we move it back and then we just tilt it backwards very, very slightly so that the bottom is further forward than the top, and then we move that back, we can get a two-tone effect on the text that looks really good. Love that. Really fits in with the kind of SeaWorld vibe that we're going for here. And for the final touch on this building, we're going to use some decal pieces to recolor some of the Lagoon pieces, get a nice white stripe on it. And then at last, we can turn our attention to the Lagoon. It's looking pretty stock at the moment, but we're going to change that, and we're going to start with the off-show pool. So like I said at the start, we're going to split this into two different pools, one which the guests can see, which is the show pool, and one which is kind of off in the distance. They know it's there, but they're not really looking at it, which is the off-show pool. So in this off-show part, firstly, we're going to put a nest in so we can get some baby Attenborosaurus, and then we're going to surround that with a much bigger load of mesh than the game gives it, just to make it look a bit more impressive. We'll do that using the circle trick. Use this trick many times. You can see how to do it in previous episodes if you don't know how. And then we'll use some simple Jurassic Park style columns to attach that to the walls of the lagoon. Nothing fancy needed in this part of the lagoon, so pretty happy with that. It's the other half we're going to be doing all the work on, so let's move over there now. The first thing that we're going to do is add in a fish feeder so that our animals have got something to eat. Now, I love this fish feeder, how it shoots the fish out and the way there's actually fish in there. What I don't love is this. How do the fish get in there? How does this work? No idea. So we're going to build our own. We're going to use one of the swimming pools to make a kind of little feeder pool that the fish will be placed into. I figured they'd be kind of injected in there via a truck or something, and they can swim about in there until it is time for them to be sent into the big lagoon to get eaten. So we're going to build around that, get this swimming pool looking more like a fish kind of holding place, use a few pieces to cover up the original bit of the fish feeder. We'll make a little area here that you could park a truck in full of fish. We'll make a little feeding system with some air conditioning units, and then we'll mesh off the top. So gulls and herons don't eat all the fish before they get into the lagoon. These pieces are actually fences, but they work just as well for meshing things off and covering things up like this. And once we've got something we're happy with, we'll cover it in some decals, a few more details, and there we go. We've got a realistic fish feeder. It's only small, but I'm pretty happy with that. Let's get on to splitting the lagoon into two. We'll do this with a really simple wall. We're just going to take some chucking pieces, extend them down to the base of the lagoon, and then use the circle trick again. But we need to make a big circle, and that gives us a really, really wide circle, which we will just use one curve of to create the wall. Really didn't want a straight wall here. That's going to ruin the aesthetic because the lagoon is pretty much curved everywhere that the guests can see it. Once we've done that, we'll just open a hole in it and then we'll run some cabling and stuff like that down to a door that would extend up or down depending on which pool the Attenborosaurus would be in. And later on we'll make the entire wall a nicer colour as well. And then we can move on to the most fun part of the build for me, which is making that kind of show area for the Attenborosaurus. Now, we have absolutely no idea what these animals were like in real life. I doubt they'd be jumping through hoops or chasing balls or anything like that. But with most animals, you can train them to come for food. You don't need to be the most intelligent life form on the planet to recognise the smell and sight of food and go and get it. So I thought at the very least we'll be able to have members of staff, probably it's SeaWorld style glamorous members of staff in wetsuits on a little kind of platform in the middle of the lagoon, and the Attenborosaurus would be trained to come up and grab their food here. This is the kind of thing that for ethical reasons I would never build it in Planet Zoo, so it's been a lot of fun building it in Jurassic World Evolution 3. We're going to build it using pieces of the visitor center, which I was not expecting when I started looking through the pieces, but there's one of the visitor center pieces that features a slope going down to some stairs with some walls built in a really nice curve, and it's flexi-color, which I was not aware of. So we're using that as the main piece for this to get some little steps coming out of the water and then some sweeping curves that the staff could walk down to a path that we're going to build over the water connecting it to the land. And we'll just use simple plaster panels to create the rest of it, some of the quarter circles and the squares as well, so we get a nice shape. And then we'll just use some more chucking pieces to create a path going back to the land, which we'll fill in with some of these bricks that we can colour to give a kind of almost like a swimming pool kind of bottom feel to it. If you're enjoying this video, by the way, don't forget to hit the like button and make sure you subscribe if you're new to the channel. And while we finish that off, let's just have a quick chat about the new updates that will be coming out in a few days' time. The improvements to the aviaries look absolutely amazing. I was actually kind of nervous when Frontier sent me the update video because there were two big builds left in this park. This lagoon and a huge aviary that we're going to build next week, and I'd already finished the lagoon. I was praying that they didn't include loads of improvements to the lagoons in the update, but happily for me at least, they went with the aviaries, which means this episode didn't become out of date before I'd even released it, and next week's episode is going to be even better than I thought it would be. Can't wait to start playing around with those aviary improvements and all the other new stuff. Anyway, back to this build. There's a bucket of fish in the wetlands pack, which is going to be very useful for our little feeding scene here, so we'll have a couple of those in. We're going to tear off a piece of the hatchery and use that to give this path an end where it joins onto the land on both sides. We'll sink some fountains in to give a bit of dynamic water there. And then we're going to cover all the walls of the aquarium in some white concrete. Wow, that took a very long time, much longer than that little snippet you saw there. But I think it's worth it because it really makes this part of the lagoon look unique and gives it that kind of SeaWorld vibe. We'll put some little islands with trees and vegetation in around the lagoon for interest. Some palm trees to sell that much more tropical vibe, and another big fountain and some columns in the middle of the feeding area to make that look nice. And with that done, the last thing to do is just drop in the underwater viewing dome, which will also be accessible from the main building, and that is the Jurassic Seas complete. Let's take a look at it. I can almost smell the early 90s looking at this with this soundtrack on it as well. I hope you're getting the same vibe. Let's see the Attenborosaurus. Such majestic creatures. Really happy I went with these instead of the Plesiosaurus. And these palm trees and all the kelp that I placed under the water as well really add that splash of green next to all the white concrete that we've got here in the lagoon. Loving how that looks. Let's check out the feeding area. Here's our improved fish feeder. Got a little forklift next to it now as well. And here's an aerial shot. You can see the stadium seating, Attenborosaurus swimming past, people taking pictures of it with their phones. Love that. This is the main underwater view under the seats. This is the separate dome. This is immediately my favorite part of the park, with the Valley of the Guanlong on the left, Dimorphodome on the right, Jurassic Seas in the middle. I think it looks so cool. Really hope you guys enjoyed that. I'll be back next week for another massive build. Thanks for watching. See you then. Bye.